Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with Naga Manchetti and Charlie State.
Our headlines today. British citizens in Afghanistan are warned to stay away from Kabul airport amid fears of an imminent terror attack.
It comes as the evacuation effort enters its final days, with thousands still waiting to be airlifted to safety.
It's a more common disorder than bulimia and anorexia. We'll hear how binge eating has soared during the pandemic.
COVID vaccines are being offered at the Reading and Leeds festivals this weekend after other major events were linked with thousands of new infections.
Good morning. The last chance to save the summer. The travel industry prepares for the latest traffic light reshuffle. It's a move they say could make or break the summer getaway. Turkey trips could get the go-ahead, but Jamaica and St Lucia may soon be off limits. I'll explain what you need to know.
Good morning. There's gold up for grabs with 3 Brits vying for a win in the Paralympic pool. Ellie Simmonds defends her title against world champion Maisie Summers-Newton and European bronze medalist Grace Harvey.
Good morning. Yesterday we had the warmest day of this August so far. The temperature reached 27.2 Celsius in Tyne-Drum in the Highlands. Today it will be cooler. We're starting with a lot of cloud. That should break, more especially in the west. I'll have all the details in 25 minutes.
Good morning, it's Thursday the 26th of August. Our top story today. The UK, the United States and Australia have all told their citizens to stay away from Kabul airport amid concerns terrorists could launch an imminent attack.
The Foreign Office has issued updated advice just days before the deadline for evacuation flights as foreign troops prepare to leave Afghanistan.
Thousands of Afghan interpreters and other staff who work for the UK have reportedly passed security checks but remain stuck in Kabul. Graham Satchell has this report.
Day after day for more than a week now, distressing pictures of Afghans at Kabul airport desperate to leave. Now a new warning from the British and American governments who say there is a high threat of a terrorist attack here. The advice: do not travel to the airport. It means a hugely difficult operation to get people out has just got worse. Latest figures from the Ministry of Defence show more than 11,000 people have so far been evacuated to the UK. Of those, almost 7,000 are Afghans and their families. But an estimated 2,000 interpreters and other staff who worked for Britain still need to be evacuated. The BBC has spoken to one former interpreter now in hiding in Kabul, terrified of being discovered by the Taliban.
If I'm left here, I will be killed by them as soon as they find me. So it will be very important for me to get as soon as possible to the UK, because I worked for 3 years with the British forces, and so the Taliban will never, ever leave me alive.
Overnight, another plane arrives at RAF Brize Norton in Oxfordshire. On board, the lucky ones who've made it. But this operation is time limited. Officially, the deadline is next Tuesday. In reality, the window will close before then. It will take at least 48 hours for British and American troops to manage their own departure. So a plea from a former military commander in Afghanistan.
Please, don't leave them behind. In the time that's available, the next 5 or 6 days, don't close the gates. Let's get the most vulnerable people into the United Kingdom and into safety. Not just interpreters, but those who fought on the battlefield against the Taliban and those who fought their ideology and are therefore under significant threat.
The Taliban control the streets of Kabul and decide who gets out. With the new advice to stay away from the airport, there are now serious questions about how this operation will end and how many more people will make it to safety. Graham Satchell, BBC News.
Let's speak to our political correspondent, Ione Wells, who's in Westminster for us this morning. Ione, this latest Foreign Office advice, in amongst what is already quite a complicated picture, has confused things even further.
That's right. This is one of a number of issues facing the evacuation process. As we've heard there, the FCO have now advised people not to travel to Kabul airport due to this terrorism threat. And that includes, I understand, the Baron Hotel, which is where officials have been processing Afghans and Brits before they board those planes. People are being advised instead to go to a safe location and stay there until further advice. So the emphasis now on just processing people who are already at the airport and that hotel. Now, another issue facing the evacuation process is the Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, Office told MPs yesterday that people who haven't been contacted about getting on flights should instead be better off trying to make their way to a land border instead. Now, I understand the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, also told MPs on Tuesday that the government were looking at setting up more processing points for evacuations in third countries across the border in places like Pakistan. Now, the issue with that, however, which is something that's been raised by the chair of the Defence Committee, Tobias Ellwood, is if the Taliban don't approve those land borders, if that message isn't being communicated to people on the ground, then the fear is that chaos could ensue as people start realising that they can't board flights and they have to start getting to borders in other ways. Now, all of this, of course, against the backdrop of time, which is the last big issue facing this evacuation process. We know that the deadline for US troops withdrawing is on Tuesday, but in reality, it's much sooner, given that US forces need to close down their operations. British officials and military want to be out before then. So really, we now are in the final hours of this evacuation as we know it.
Only for the moment. Thank you.
And we'll get more at 7:30 with James Heapy, who is the Armed Forces Minister. We'll get more details about exactly what is planned and the timings.
Ministers are facing fresh warnings about the effect of removing extra universal credit payments in the autumn.
Two Conservative MPs have written to the Prime Minister saying that cutting the £20 a week uplift risks undermining his levelling up agenda. The government says it's focused on getting claimants back to work, but campaigning charities say many could end up in debt. Here's more from our political correspondent, Nick Erdley.
The number of people on universal credit has almost doubled during the pandemic to almost 6 million. And since last March, they've been getting an extra £20 a week. But that temporary uplift comes to an end in October. Anthony is one of those worried about the impact that'll have.
£80 not a lot to some people, but it's a lot of money when you ain't got it. Once pay the bills, I'll be left with probably about £60, £60-70 for the month, and that's got to do me a month's shopping, which no chance, even just single person, that's stretching the limits.
Charities are warning about the impact too. Citizens Advice surveyed 2,000 people on universal credit, and they think more than a third could be forced into debt when the uplift ends. Here at Westminster, a number of MPs are worried too. Opposition parties want the extra money to be made permanent, and a growing number of Conservatives are saying the same. In a letter today, two Tory MPs tell the Prime Minister to rethink. Peter Aldiss and John Stevenson say they are alarmed to see the government unwilling to heed the widespread warnings that are coming from all quarters. They add those who receive the money are most in need of levelling up, which the government has made its key mission. Ministers say the extra money was always temporary and they're now focused on a plan for jobs, but the pressure is only likely to grow in the coming weeks. Nick Erdley, BBC News, Westminster.
COVID vaccines are being offered at the Reading and Leeds festivals this weekend in an effort to increase take-up in young adults. Pop-up clinics will be open at both events, but health officials said people under the influence of alcohol or drugs will not be given a jab. It's after two other festivals were linked to a surge in cases in recent weeks.
NHS trusts in England have been told to prepare for the possibility of administering the COVID vaccine to 12 to 15-year-olds next month. Currently, jabs are only offered to children if they have certain health conditions or live with a vulnerable adult. The Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation is weighing up the arguments for the move. The Department of Health says no final decision has been made.
The NHS has temporarily stopped some blood testing in England for certain conditions like pre-diabetes and allergies due to shortages of collection tubes. Doctors are being urged to stagger regular blood tests if it's clinically safe. Becton Dickinson, the medical device company which makes vials for the NHS, has warned of serious supply chain issues across the UK.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.